30. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to call this budget planning and retreat meeting to order on this Monday, February the 16th, 2026, in these Jeffrey D. Barnes Council chambers. I believe we have Councilman Jackson as well as Ms. Kim Batten joining us by remote tonight, and the rest of the members are all present here. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilman Eccles if you would please give her invocation.
Lord, we thank you for this day that you have given us, Father. We thank you that you are the giver of wisdom and kindness and love. And we thank you that we operate in those things as we go about to do the town's business. God, I thank you for all the wisdom that you have imparted in us. And we give you glory, honor, and praise for your presence in this place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 2, Mr. David. We'll be calling your name out a lot tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, and council members. Appreciate your investment and time tonight and look forward to a good, healthy conversation. So this item, the review and confirmation of the objectives for the budget retreat, and also just kind of want to touch on the purpose of a retreat. So according to ICMA, the International City County Managers Association, the primary purpose of a town budget retreat is to move beyond the line item, incremental budgeting, and instead align financial resources with the community's strategic goals and long-term priorities. And so particularly tonight, I mean, we're going to have other budget retreats and we're going to have other times where we talk about the details. But, you know, tonight we really want to start broadly and talk, you know, some long-term needs and goals. And so really want to try to develop priorities from the council level so that will help staff as we work to formulate a proposed budget for you. So some key purposes of a town budget retreat include strategic goal setting, aligning resources with priorities, improving communications and consensus, shifting to long-term plans, focusing on performances and outcomes, and clarifying rules. And so to lead into that, you know, we are still in a formal setting in the council chambers, but oftentimes in the retreat it's a little more informal, and we certainly hope to have good conversations and maybe have a little bit more informality tonight. And so oftentimes, you know, you want to establish some ground rules when you have, you know, less informal discussion. And I've facilitated retreats in previous work, and so this is kind of just a list of potential ground rules that we've used in other retreats that I've facilitated. And again, this is just for your consideration. If you want to adjust this, that's your prerogative, but just want to kind of establish a few things. But some, you know, key reasons for establishing ground rules include creating a safe space for dialogue, safe, clear expectations and norms, enhancing productivity and focus, building trust and accountability, managing conflict, and ensuring equal participation. And so some of the suggested ground rules that I propose for this council tonight, 1, have an open mind. 2, assume positive intent from each participant. Everyone participates, no one dominates, all ideas matter. And we do have some logistical challenges tonight, but we certainly want to work through them and make sure that, you know, those that are participating virtually can participate as well. So, you know, certainly ask for your patience with that. Actively listen, be curious, and seek to understand. Be respectful, disagree without being disagreeable. Be serious, but to have fun. Speak your truth without blame or judgment. Be inspired, focus on what's possible rather than what's wrong, and leave on a united front as much as possible. Does that sound agreeable to you? Does council wish to make any adjustments to that or any additions?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good to me.
And so with none, we didn't have it explicitly on the agenda, but we would just ask for the council to confirm the objectives and budget retreat and to consider approval of the agenda tonight.
Everybody fine with what's been presented so far?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, I thought I heard you, I just wanted to verify. It sounds like everybody's,
Okay, thank you. And just moving on to, Ben, do you want a motion for that, to approve the agenda, or are we good?
That'd be up to,
The attorney who's not here.
yeah,
So,
I would say since it wasn't on the agenda, it's kind of in limbo.
okay. So, so we'll move on. The next item, presentation for Becky Veazey of the MAPS Group concerning classification and pay plan and personnel policy study. As you know, this was something that had been on previous agendas, and so just wanted to bring that back up for some discussion. And I know Ms. Veazey here will have a lot of information that she'll be able to provide and be available to ask any questions. Ms. Veazey and I've experienced other pay plans that she's done before in previous jurisdictions. We've worked together in numerous jurisdictions, and so very familiar with her services and the benefits that having that third party come in and really provide that assessment. So any questions that you may have for me, I certainly want to take advantage of that as well. And so, you're familiar with what pay and classification plan is and the personnel policy. So I won't go into that detail, but you've got some additional information in your agenda packet if you would like, or again, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. And at this time, I'm going to turn it, Cynthia, is there anything else that you would like to add at this time? Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and call on Ms. Veazey to come forward and provide her wealth of knowledge and information, and we'll go from there.
And good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. I'm pleased to be back with you. My purpose in being here is to provide information to you, to help you make a decision, answer questions that you have as you make your decision. It's very informal. I have some slides that I think will just make sure I don't forget anything important. It's kind of a cheat sheet. But please, as I go along, speak up with any questions you have. Let me start by just giving you a little bit of my background. I've met some of you I haven't. So I'll start by just talking about my background in HR, starting out as an intern with the city of Greensboro many, many years ago, and 2 or 3 years in Chapel Hill with their HR department. And then really telling my age, I was Carey's first ever HR director. Oh, wow. Went there in 1981, that tells you how old I am, when the town had about 175 employees and about 26,000 population. So that was a long time ago for Carey, too. I think they're up to close to 1,800 employees and 180,000 population or something like that.
1,800 employees.
Something like that, yes. But while I was there, we went from 26 to 45,000 population, from 175 to 400 employees. I left Carey to be the HR director in Jerome County, and then 38 years ago came to work with the MAPS Group. So for the last 38 years, I've been traveling the state, working with local governments all over North Carolina, and all sizes, from tiny little Whitakers with 2 employees all the way up to actually doing some work for the city of Charlotte. And I think last time you can see there are services, and the first 2 are what we are talking with you about tonight. And then we also do other services like hiring. Our newest service is actually an online employee satisfaction survey where employees can respond anonymously and we can compile the results and feed them back to the organization. So the last time I counted, I personally have worked with over 225 local governments in North Carolina in that 38 years. And around 2.5 years ago, I finally kind of did my bucket list, which was to make it to all 100 counties.
Wow.
So I've enjoyed the geography of North Carolina, along with working with wonderful places. Whoops, wrong way. Okay, and those are just some of our clients, some examples of some of the places we've worked. Now, I know the staff forwarded to you a handout, and that's one actually off of our website because it covers some of the things we get questions about most often. So we wanted to go ahead and provide that to you. But I want tonight to emphasize that everybody, when people hear pay and classification, they tend to focus on the pay side. But I want to talk about the other side of the coin too, which is equally important, because there are two sides of the coin. So the classification side of the coin is looking at what are the duties in a job. How do those duties compare to duties in other jobs? Are they very similar? Are they similar enough to have the same title? Are they different? And if they're different, then ranking those jobs in terms of which require more education, more experience, more knowledge, more skill, more responsibility, which require less. What's an appropriate title for the job? In studies, in classification and pay studies, often we will recommend a different title for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's because the duties have changed since the last study and the title's no longer accurate. Sometimes it's because titles get old-fashioned. We recommend something more modern. And sometimes there really is just a better title. And then on the classification side, capturing the essence of each job in something we call a class specification, what people often refer to as a job description. So that's the classification side. The pay side then says, given a set of duties in a job, what's an appropriate salary range for that job from start to max, based on what other places in the market are paying for the same kind of work. Any questions on that?
So if you basically have the same position in two different municipalities, and they're doing the similar task, but say one is in charge of a $75 million budget and one is in charge of a $5 million budget, do you take that into consideration?
Absolutely.
So it's not just what they're doing, it's the amount of responsibility associated with it, with the number of services, say, that town may offer, or, like I said, just a bigger budget that you are managing over a smaller municipality.
Absolutely. And also what functions are, in that department. So like if we took a finance director, for example, a finance director may be doing or have under their jurisdiction general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, fixed assets accounting. They may, in some towns, they're going to have utility billing and collections. In
Police.
some towns, they may have a warehouse that they're managing, for example, that was the case in Wake Forest. So we take into account not only the scope, which includes both the budget, physical resources like buildings, equipment, vehicles, but also the functions and the size of the staff. So all of that goes into setting a salary range. I was looking back at the one we did in 2018 year, and what I did there, which is very frequently what we do, is, for example, when we looked at, for example, Parks and Recreation Director, we had Parks and Recreation Directors from some larger jurisdictions, but then we also looked at the next level down in those larger jurisdictions, which might be like the athletic program supervisor or the recreation program supervisor, and compared what your role was doing and where it might fit. Was it closer to the lower level position? Was it closer to the higher level position? And where does it fit within that? Just as an example.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Becky, if I may, I think it might also be worth noting that, you know, sometimes in a smaller organization, you've got maybe a supervisor that's doing some duties that may be delegated in a larger organization as well. So they may not have, in a smaller organization, they may be doing more individually than they are in a large organization. For
Absolutely.
instance, you know, finance director, using the example, may not, in a large organization, may not touch payroll or certain things like that. Whereas in a smaller organization.
More hands-on.
Yes, more
Yes.
hands-on, definitely.
And another, I think, going, you know, from, I started at the department head level, but starting at the worker bee level, you know, what's interesting, I did the first study ever for Holly Springs back in 1992. They had about, I think, maybe 12 or 14 employees. Their public works department had about 4 employees. And those 4 employees were doing streets, stormwater management, park maintenance, ground maintenance, building maintenance, water and sewer line maintenance and repair, meter reading. So they had lots of duties. The next time I did it, there were 2 employees doing just water and sewer and 4 doing the other things. And that was probably about 1996. The next time I did their study, they had 5 employees doing water and sewer. And so each time we did a study, as the town grew, the jobs became more specialized. So sometimes in small towns, we have to take into account that they're doing a lot broader, more tasks that require more skills than, you know, somebody who's just doing streets or just doing water and sewer or just doing park maintenance. So we take all of that into account. Any other questions at this point? Obviously, some of the reasons you want to make sure that you have a classification and pay plan, number 1, and number 2, that it's accurate and up to date. And obviously, the first one is so you can recruit and retain employees. So I want to break those out on the 2 sides of the coin. So recruit on the classification side of the coin is looking at when there's a vacant position. You want to make sure that job description is accurate and up to date. So it has on it the most recent education, experience, knowledge, skills, abilities, and certifications needed to do the job. So it helps whomever's doing the hiring process think about what needs to go in that job ad. What kind of interview questions should we ask? So we get a good match between the job that needs to be done, the person being hired to do that job. Studies show there can be as much as a 40% difference in productivity based on how good a hiring decision's made. So making sure that you've got the tools there. The other piece of that, and I'm just going to, this is a little bit out of sync, but I'm going to throw in, is that one of the important parts of having your job description up to date is being able to hold employees accountable. If you don't have a clearly defined job description and you've got somebody who's not performing a task, but that task isn't on that job description, it's a lot harder to hold them accountable for that. So that's another important piece of that. Then recruit on the pay side of the coin is looking at making sure that the starting salary for your job is competitive enough that you're not having to advertise and scrape the bottom of the barrel and take somebody less than satisfactory. Retain, of course, is the town's ability to keep the valuable, experienced, educated folks who are already here. And, you know, there's a lot of value in people having that institutional memory as well as, you know, the knowledges and skills. And studies have shown, or the Chamber of Commerce's most recent study said that when an employee leaves the town, the cost of the town is somewhere between 2/3 of that employee's annual salary and 125% of that employee's annual salary. So turnover is very expensive.
Ms. Veazey, could you repeat that for emphasis, please, as far as the cost of turnover?
Okay. So when an employee leaves, the cost to the town is somewhere between 66% of that employee's annual salary and 125% of that employee's annual salary. And that includes things like the amount of time it takes to go back out and recruit, to interview, to check references. It accounts for the fact that when somebody comes on board, usually they're not productive for a good, depending on the complexity of job. You know, their productivity is going up fairly steeply in the first at least 6 months. So you're losing some of that productivity when that person leaves. It puts more stress on other employees, sometimes requires overtime. There's just so many things that go into the cost of turnover. When I was in Cary, way back in the dark ages, we were, you know, here we are at 26,000, we were competing with Raleigh. And what we found was, just for example, for police officers, I know y'all don't have to worry about that, and you're very fortunate, but just for police officers, we didn't want to be the training ground, because that costs more than being reasonably competitive. So we found that as long as we were within about $800 to about $1,500 at the starting salary, then folks wouldn't change. Once we got a little bit further away from that, then we became a training ground, and it was more expensive than being competitive. So, recruit and retain employees. Retain on the pay side then is looking not at that starting salary, but the whole salary range. Is it competitive? Is it being used in a competitive fashion? Internal equity, again, you want to make sure jobs are ranked appropriately, which hopefully leads to equal pay for equal work. Maximize cost effectiveness. I think the best way to describe this is to tell you about a study I did. Let's see, the press is not here, is that right? Okay.
We are being recorded.
Okay, I think I'm safe. So this was in 1991, and that's long enough ago, right? And this was the city of Monroe. They had a long-term city manager. He'd been there over 30 years. And his philosophy was he didn't want anybody to tell him what he could or couldn't pay. He wanted to decide. So whenever he'd hire somebody, they didn't have salary ranges. No starting salaries, no maximums. He'd bring folks in, he'd negotiate, set their pay, and then they'd periodically get raises. He retired, a new manager came in and asked us to create a classification and pay plan for them. When we did that study in 1991, we found an administrative assistant that was making $52,000 a year. Now, $52,000 a year in 1991 is like $85,000 a year now. We found a custodian that was making $45,000, which would be like, $75,000. And then we found a bunch of underpaid folks. So what was happening in that city is they were overpaying some folks, and underpaying a bunch of folks. And so part of the reason you want to have your classification and pay plan accurate and up to date is because it's like the infrastructure of the HR system. If that's out of whack, it pulls everything else out of whack. And you want to make sure you're not overpaying, as well as being able to recruit and retain employees. And then finally, defensible system, two parts to that. One is defensible in the legal sense, and there are a number of laws we pay attention to as we do this. Americans with Disabilities Act, OSHA's Lead-Borne Pathogen Standards, Fair Labor Standards Act, just to name a few. The other part of defensible is that what we recommend to you is based on professional methodology. We aren't listening to anybody whispering in our ears saying, give so-and-so a raise, don't give so-and-so a raise. We make professional recommendations. So any questions on that one? So there are two things that are going on that create the need to update your classification and pay plan. One, I've already talked about a little bit, which is that jobs change. Now, not every job will, but a number will, and it can be for any number of reasons. I shared with you what can happen as an organization grows. Jobs, become more specialized, for example. New technology can change the kind of skills people have to have. Regulations can change the kind of certifications folks have to have. The organizations add or delete services. That changes the duty, can add or delete duties in jobs. Things get reorganized. Have different people reporting to different people. And that can change the nature of supervision or independence in jobs. And all of that can mean that the job, number one, the job description is no longer accurate, and number two, the job classification is incorrect. So that's the first place we started. The other part, of course, is that everybody knows pay changes over time. And most organizations do what's typically called a cost of living adjustment or market adjustment, which usually means kind of following the average of inflation and moving pay up over time. And that's a good thing, but there's a flaw in that. The flaw is that while you're moving pay up on the average of inflation, in reality, some jobs are going up faster than that inflation rate in the market. Some are going up slower than that inflation rate in the market. So when we do a study, we go to the market at a given point in time, we identify the going rate of pay for jobs, assign them to the pay plan, and then typically you go another 3 to 5 years, adjust on the average of inflation, come back, do another study, and make those fine-tuning adjustments again. In fast-growing organizations, for example, we did this with Clayton, we've done it in Apex, we've done it in Fuquay, we've done it with other towns in other parts of the state, other counties in other parts of the state, is when the organization's growing very quickly, we actually put them on a 2 or 3 years, or 3 or 4 year cycle, where we'll study a third or a fourth of the jobs every year and come back and start all over. Because you will really see a lot of change. The more rapidly an organization's growing, the more change you see. The standard for a pretty stable organization is about every 5 years. So questions about that? Okay, so the steps in the study, first of all, the organization identifies the need to do it. We start out with employee orientation meetings where we take employees through a lot of these same slides. We want to try, number one, to make sure there's not misinformation. Number two, for employees to understand what is and is not included and answer questions. Well, we believe that transparency helps create credibility. Every employee completes a questionnaire with his or her job duties, and that goes through the chain of command for review and sign off that says, yep, this is right, before it comes to us. Once we get those questionnaires, we review them and we do interviews. And we interview at least one employee with every different set of duties. The purpose of the interview is to make sure we understand the duties accurately so we can accurately classify the job and make accurate salary comparisons. Once we finish the interviews, we go back to our office, gather the salary data, identify the classifications, write or update the job descriptions, put everything in a draft, send it back for the town to review and make sure we didn't misunderstand or misinterpret anything, make any tweaks that are needed, and then present it to you. So any questions about the process?
Do you just do salary, you don't do benefits?
We actually do benefits. And I think we did that last time we did your study too. We look at things like the amount of life insurance, vacation accrual, longevity, 401k, those are the main ones. There may be one or two others. Sometimes there's a specific issue that we need to look into, but those are the main ones we look at.
So in the final report, would it be municipality A offers these 6, not that we took 10 municipalities and 5 offer this and 4 offer that, you would get the complete benefit package of what a municipality offers, not how many offer a specific benefit?
Here's what it looks like.
Very good.
So we have on this spreadsheet the places we surveyed, which last time were Butner, Clayton, Creedmoor, Nightdale, Selma, Wendell, and Zebulon in Johnston County. And we have what each one does with life insurance, number of holidays, that's the one I forgot, 401k, paid dental, paid health, performance pay, and probationary increases on that page. And then on this page, we have vacation accrual and longevity pay.
Okay. Good, I just wanted to make sure it'd be the whole package and
Yeah.
not a number of who did what.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I think the rest of these are things that really get into more of the weeds that probably, if you decide you want to do the study, then we would go over those at the presentation of the study to help you understand them. I'm happy, I have these slides in case you have questions, but I wanted to make sure you have time to ask any questions you have.
Ms. Becky, you had already mentioned that our last study was 2018. How often, you probably already said it, but how often do you typically see smaller towns our size do these studies?
It really isn't as much a matter of size as change. Like, for example, we are doing a study right now for the town of Silva, which is a small mountain town. But they got an influx of folks coming wanting to move to the mountains. So we have done one every 3 years for them for like 4 rounds. On the other hand, Butner, they are growing, but not as much as Silva. So I think we did, the last one was 4 years, and the one before that was 5 years. But when an organization's fairly stable, the rule of thumb is every 5 years.
So the information that you use to compare other municipalities, is that what's going to be taken from the information that's currently on your website? Because I know you've got the 2025 salary survey, and I think last year was the benefit survey. So is that the information that's going to be used for
No.
comparisons?
No, we do your study. Once we've determined who we're going to survey, then we actually contact them and get their current pay plan. Because the salary surveys, number one, a lot of times it doesn't have every single job we need, like the one the league does. The other thing is that sometimes the people who do those for the league aren't the top HR person, and their matches aren't always accurate. So there are errors in those. So we want to make sure we've got the accurate, factual paper in our hand data. Like for example, if you say Wilson Mills, it's going to be one of our comparisons. We will get a copy of the pay plan from the town of Wilson Mills.
Any other questions? Councilman Jackson, do you have any questions?
Do not. I may be kind of lucky tonight, my voice is iffy, so be fairly quiet.
Understand. I just to verify, you have been able to hear Miss Becky, though, haven't you?
I have had it.
Great, thank you. All right, unless there's any further questions, we appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, you ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Mayor, Council, the next item on the agenda under discussion and possible action items. 4A, we've got memorandum of agreement with the North Carolina League of Municipalities for the services from the MAPS group. And certainly greatly appreciate Becky Vesey for coming and providing so much information and being available for questions. So I know it was touched on, but just want to kind of reiterate the relationship here. So Archer Lodge's current classification and pay plan and personnel policy was developed by the MAPS group a number of years ago through an agreement with the League of Municipalities. So we are members of the League of Municipalities. The MAPS group is part of the League's preferred partner program. So the League chooses to extend preferred partner status to organizations that fill a niche business need for local governments and closely associated affiliates while exhibiting an excellent record of service. And Becky, I believe the MAPS group was probably one of the first preferred partners for the League and has been a part of the preferred partner program for a number of years. So we have the proposed services, two different options from the MAPS group, but it's technically our memorandum of agreement. It would actually be with the League of Municipalities. So we have two options for the board's consideration. At the last meeting, the council suggested getting a revised proposal for the personnel policy only. So you have that second option in your agenda packet. That would be for a proposed cost of $4,500 plus the cost of actual expenses such as mileage, meals, printing, and supplies, and so forth. The cost of the original proposal would be $7,200, so $7,200 to $4,500 plus the cost of expenses. So council may choose to consider the revised or the original proposal. I know this is a retreat, but it is an advertised meeting. You do have the option to consider it tonight if you would like, or at a future meeting. So you've got the two memorandums of agreement, one for $7,200 plus expenses or $4,500 plus expenses. And so, ask council for direction. Is this something you would like to consider tonight or at a specific meeting in the future?
In the past, we've only taken action during the regular council meeting, so.
I understand that has been historically the case. You do have that option if you want to. So it's my job to give council options, and so I wanted to give that option, but with the context that you haven't done so in the past. So it's up to you, but council does have that option if you wanted to.
Yeah, because I noticed on the agenda, it says budget planning retreat meeting, which, meeting was added to it, but on the website, it's really referred to as budget planning retreat, which I'd hate to take action on something that the public may want to comment on.
Understandable.
And we've labeled it as a retreat and not a meeting.
Understood. It's just, again, it's my job, one of my
I
jobs to give
appreciate
you
that.
options, so.
Well, the good news is the March meeting is not that far away, right? And so we've just had the presentation, council's had opportunities to ask questions, so we could potentially consider that, for the, at March council meeting.
Okay. All right, so we will add that to the agenda for March 3rd. Thank you. All right, so Mayor, Council, if you're ready to move on, the next item, again, this is where we get a little bit more informal, hopefully. And so we are going to proceed to a start, stop, and continue exercise. And, this is just a good brainstorming tool, opportunity to get some ideas considered, thrown about, and just discussed. So start, stop, continue is a simple, actionable, and effective retrospective framework for gathering feedback to improve projects and processes. It categorizes items into three buckets. And there are a couple of ways that you can kind of picture this, inbox, outbox, or some people like to look at a stoplight. So what to begin, what to halt, and what to maintain. So the exercise fosters improved performance, better collaboration, and clearer communication. I'm going the wrong direction. All right. So basically, to simplify it even more, clarity, we're looking for clarity and distortion. What's working, and maybe, what's not exactly working great, what feels a little bit off or heavy or confusing. So if you would allow me, I'm going to move over to the easel and pad, and, would like for your input about this, so that we can, this will help get some discussion going about maybe some things that we need to address as an organization, with council, with staff, and then that will help us as we begin planning for the upcoming budget year and future years as well. So so we'll start with actually, why don't we start with continue. What are successful initiatives, programs, practices, and strategies or behaviors that we're doing well on that should be maintained?
Thank you, Ms. Becky. Yes, ma'am.
So again, what are some things that we as an organization, as a town, as a community, do well that you want to, don't necessarily need to change, that we want to continue doing well?
Any particular order, or just as
Let-
thoughts come up, or?
Let's just brainstorm as thoughts come up. I'd like to stick with continue, and then we'll focus on start and stop.
Okay.
I think Parks and Rec. Sorry, Mark, I talked over you.
That's okay. You go ahead.
Oh, I just threw out Parks and Rec. I think that's been a success that the community has liked.
Are there certain things about Parks and Rec, or more general?
I think the variety of activities, Chris is doing a good job always looking for different types of activities for different age groups.
And bear with me, my handwriting is not perfect, but hopefully you can read it. That's why I write in all caps.
For me, two just pretty easy things is, the shred events seem to be fairly well received, and, our speed sign, especially the one right there by Town Hall, it's, generally talked about fairly positively. That might be
Shred
something
event.
to-
Shred events, okay, thank you.
The shredded event and the speed sign here in front of Town Hall. Was there a third one, Mark?
Just that, those speed limit signs might be something, I mean, we might look to expand on sometime in the future.
Okay. I'm going to echo the Parks and Rec myself. I like our approach really in offering something for nearly all age groups, from the senior activities day that we have once a month that the town sponsors and has since it began, to the programs that we offer, at our park. Very excited about, closing out, the final phase, over there on Castleberry Road, to encompass the building, getting all of our equipment in a safe, secure, and dry area. and really like the variety of programs, you know, that we're offering. Love the fact that we're offering something about compound and recurve bows. That was an outstanding idea. I think we were able to utilize grant money, you know.
Sorry, what was that?
The archery program.
Archery, okay.
That we have, that we were able to utilize grant funds, you know, to outfit us on that. Like I said, just a wide range of programs, not just athletics, but also, you know, passive recreation as well, and that we're able to offer. And it seems like, from what I hear, the ideas are constantly, you know, growing, you know, about what we're doing. Flag football, you know, baseball, softball, soccer, you know, just being a few. I know I go out to the park on a regular basis and see the walking trail utilized quite a bit. And so that's great. And so.
I think we should continue our partnership with the community center too. I think they're a really big resource that we may not take as much advantage of as we could, just to collaborate with them.
Amen.
I'm very proud of the support that we've been able to provide the community center really since inception. I believe that dollar figure is somewhere around $500,000, and I don't know if a lot of people realize that over the years, the totality, you know, of it. And I agree. I think being partners with the community center is a wonderful thing, and you know, I'm glad that we've been able to be such an important, you know, factor, you know, and that partnership has been a success.
Are there other partnerships that you feel like when the town does well?
Animal control. Partnership with Clayton.
The sheriff department.
Yep. Those both are major partnerships that have been really big success. I'm going to throw out zoning and land planning too. That was really the crux of the incorporation effort. And, you know, you can see marked difference between the state of development prior and since incorporation. And I think that was something, again, to have that ability to manage growth on the local level, that being one of the main priorities of incorporation. You can see that paying off. I'll throw out another one is our debt load right now. I don't know the exact figure to date, but I know this coming August, we pay our final debt payment to the family, the Smith family, and on the land, you know, of the park, and that's something to be very proud of. And if you add up what we owe on first and second phase of Town Hall, you're basically looking at an amount of a pretty healthy mortgage for an individual family. And to be able to state that for a town of 5,000, I think that's something to be very proud of.
All right, other ideas? What's working well? What do we want to continue?
I'll throw the fire department out. You know, that has seemed to go well, even though that, you know, we're potentially going to be entering into a cost share program. You know, that our communication with the fire department, both chief driver and in some cases their board, has been very good and timely. We found out about that cost share program very, very early in the game last year, and we're able to actually incorporate that in this year's budget in preparation, you know, for that. And I'm not sure that all towns, you know, had that, same amount of communication on that subject. So very thankful, you know, that we have that, strong relationship.
Other ideas?
That covered a lot. I don't want
It
to
does.
regurgitate what's already been said.
Yep. I'm very happy that we have the complement of equipment that we do, you know, to take care of the park. You know, obviously, anytime when you're at the start, at the front end, that's when a lot of the brunt of the investment, you know, dollars wise is, right? And we have quite a collection, you know, of equipment, you know, that's going to help us maintain, you know, that park, as it should be. So as long as we take care of it and use it properly, it should last a long time.
We have a lot more than a lot of our surrounding areas here. Help out specifically in Zebulon a lot. And they're listing out a list of their equipment, and we have more than them.
Yeah.
And they have a bigger crew, as well as more acreage, as well as more citizens.
Yep.
It puts us in a good situation.
It does.
Other thoughts? Of things that we're doing well now that we want to continue?
You know, ever since we've been incorporated, we started out with a cigar box, with our bills in it. No cash.
No money but bills.
But, I'm proud, you know, of some of the things that we have done. The furniture in this first building, you know, was donated to us. I found a resort. We put about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of furniture in here that didn't cost us anything. But also the animal control. We're paying Clayton a year, which would take 10 years to pay for our own animal control. That just to get it up to where we are today. They already have land with, cages and pickups and all this stuff, and employees and benefits. You know, we talk about benefits all the time. And I hear people in the rest of the county at the meeting. I'm so glad y'all come up with out there. We're trying it now with two towns close together, been doing the same thing. I just think we've had our heart out there trying to do what we can do, but we can't stop. We got to keep going and trying to get grants, and our communication with our reps and senators and stuff like that have just been amazing. For the money that we've been able to come this way, and I know it's slowed down, but you don't have things that happen in the western part of the state every year. And we got to help look after them out there too. But
Clyde, I'm glad you said that. That reminds me of projects on the shelf. You know, we learned that pretty early on, and the value of having projects on the shelf, and that has really paid off with some of the grant money and SCIF fund money and things like that have come our way. A lot of that was because of those projects that had been identified and goals set. And there had already been a certain amount of legwork and planning done, you know, on several of those things that helped us it helped establish a rough estimate, what money would be needed. But it also gave us a list that we could hand to our representatives and that they could then take off and kind of talk on our behalf, as to what projects that we had, and not just saying, well, if money comes our way, we'll figure out a way to spend it. It was well worthwhile to have those projects on the shelf.
All right, so I've got, done a lot since incorporation, great progress, building partnerships, pursuing grants, good relationship with legislative delegation, value having identified projects ready to go when grants funding become available. Okay.
Yep.
Other things that you want to continue?
I know Ms. Kim is always on the lookout for opportunities of how to invest our money to maximize the return, as she's on the lookout for funds that might draw a higher interest rate or something. And I know that she's, been on the lookout for those opportunities for many, many years, and had put us in a really good position where our money is actually making money for us, as much as allowed. And so that's something that, not only been on the lookout for grant opportunities, but to continue to be on the lookout on, investment opportunities, for our money as well. Just an interest rate here and there, a point here or there can make a difference.
Definitely. Other things?
This
I
is
got the third sheet. So
We got to fill that up, too.
I'll fill it up, but it's lonely right here. Need some other things right here.
It's, I've got something that I would like to see in my lifetime. And, right now, we don't know what's going on. We've not asked questions. But I would like to see us try to purchase some land behind, close to Murphy Road, and have two entrances to the park, where you can come in off Murphy Road or Castleberry Road, either one. And now with stuff on that side, could go all the way across one road to the other. They don't make land anymore. If that comes available, I would like to see if we would want to try to participate. It makes me feel a lot better that we're gonna make the last payment in August this year, that land down there will be paid for.
Yeah. Well, and that's certainly a good thought, and we certainly, want to talk about things that we want to do, priority. Right now, we're just focusing on continuing, so before we move on to start and stop, is there anything else you want to add to the continue list at this time? And, again, this is not a list to be all end all. This is certainly things that we can adjust moving forward and other conversations. But this is really just a tool to get discussion and thoughts flowing. All right, so we'll move on to stop. So again, we're all human. We're not perfect. There are things that we can do. We want to stop, think about ways that we can improve, and that needs, that part of that is, know thyself. Know what we do well. What are some things that maybe we don't do as well that we want to improve on. So what are some things that we are doing now that we want to stop?
I would like to stop pursuing sanitary sewer. Seems like we've had multiple conversations on it, and we got incorporated to keep things the same, and you get sanitary sewer in here, you got dense development, apartments that nobody wants. And plus the expense, we can't afford it.
On that same subject, I think as long as we have residential, our taxes are gonna have to keep going up, because housing will not. With all the people that I've talked with over the last 2 or 3 years, and I've not done a lot of talking about it lately, but people that I have talked with in past, that if you don't have some commercial, our taxes just with school districts, because they don't pay tax. And so it takes a lot more houses to raise the tax value. You know, that was the one thing I was pushing it for, is so we could lower the residential people here's rates and pick it up with the commercial rates and go up. You know, so that's,
So, I mean, obviously, the ideal, most towns want to have that mix of commercial, industrial, and residential for, you know, that balance of the tax base, but also other reasons as well. But certainly, you know, there may be, you know, other circumstances that kind of outweigh that, and, you know, as been mentioned, the cost of sewer, the initial cost of investment could be cost prohibitive. You know, I don't think we're necessarily saying that as a council that's now, but it could be. I mean, so we're just brainstorming here. You know, we're just having good, open discussion. What are some other things that you would like to stop?
I don't believe I've heard any conversation about us having our own police department, but I think that's a non-starter as well. I mean, I'm new to the council. Has there been any conversation about?
I think it's been, we don't want it, but it may come a time that we don't have a choice. If the county decides that they are no longer going to provide that service, we would have to, but not that we want it unless we're forced to do it on our own. Is that pretty much something I'll remember?
We're a letter away, and Councilmember Eccles, that's why we're in animal control. When we started, you know, we were working, you know, the county was providing that service for us, and it was fairly early on. And I am paraphrasing, and I'll say this because of recording and everything. We appreciate everything the county does for us, and but that letter pretty much said, you know, again, paraphrasing, Town of Archer Lodge, congratulations, you're incorporated now. You are now in control of your own animal control. You have 60 days to figure it out. And that's what happened. Thank goodness we had already developed. And again, we have a great relationship with the county and appreciate everything the county continues to do for us, you know, absolutely. But as it was mentioned earlier in this brainstorming session, thank goodness we had already developed. And I guess I'd like to add that to the continuation. We need to continue those relationships with our peers, you know, because it really pays off. And I didn't always appreciate that during my early years on council. But the fact that we were able to reach out to Clayton and within 60 days have a framework of, you know, an agreement and to provide for animal control to be provided in our town limits was a testament to that relationship. And it was a very, very good deal, and it has been a good deal for a long time. Now, we'll all recall, last year, it was communicated to us that there was no guarantee, about this year, next year, but there was a possibility that arrangement may have to change one day. And it had to do with resources, that Clayton had. And that's one of the reasons why, the previous administrator, recommended the rate last year that he did, so that we could preemptively, if you will, go ahead and start paying more because, for that service. Because prior to that, we were paying a pretty minimum amount, as a retainer, if you will, and then basically paying per call. And, but we wanted to go ahead and step that up a little bit because really and truly, we don't want to be in that business. We would prefer that relationship if at all possible because of the resources, manpower. With manpower, there's benefits, et cetera. So the upfront cost of starting that would be, pretty substantial for us. And, but by maintaining that relationship, yes, it may cost us a little bit more, and, but it would still be a cost savings, for us. And that's where, you had mentioned the police protection. That was another reason why, we've been meeting with the sheriff periodically just to make sure. And, but, we all know that changes can happen. Changes can happen, and we can, we could be confronted, or not confronted, that's not a good word. We could be told or communicated to that, hey, you need to provide this on your own. And we know from very early on, conversations and things with other towns that would be that would probably be the most expensive service that we could provide. Just to give you a little context.
So Mayor, I've certainly heard what you were saying, and so I added another thing to continue preparing for contingencies.
Yes, be prepared. Boy Scout motto.
Yes, sir. All right. Is there anything else that you want to consider stopping? Things that we're doing that we're not doing well? Going once, going twice. Again, this is, no firm, this is not a policy, this is just brainstorming. All right, so next, what are some things that we want to start? Some things that we're not doing now that maybe we've seen in other communities, or you talk with, your neighbors and, colleagues in the community, and maybe some things that they would like to see. What are some things that we want to start?
I'll break the ice on that one. I know, kind of echoing a little bit what Mayor Pro Tem Castleberry said a minute ago. But, outside of zoning and land planning, again, having, being the ability to manage growth from a local level, our Parks and Recreation is the main thing that we're able to offer, right? And to be able to embrace that and make sure that we position ourselves well for the future. We've seen growth, a tremendous amount of growth, certainly in my lifetime, and we've seen a tremendous amount of growth since incorporation, since November 2009. I definitely would like to see us consider the purchase of another piece of land, to where we could, if nothing else, we could do, and a lot of other towns have done this. Clayton is an example, Garner is an example, where they banked land. They basically purchased land and they sat on it for a while until they could afford to develop. And but it has more than paid off for them, particularly with the growth that we've seen. 30 acres. We went from 4 acres at the community center to 30 acres now at our park. And but one of one of the downsides to not having access to sewer, we couldn't develop, 100% of our land. We had to keep some of it for repair area for the septic. One of the things that past councils, rather, has spoke about numerous times, and again, this would be as budget, and potential grant money, probable grant money to make it happen. But it would be a building, and a building such as like Town of Wendell has, something with an open floor plan that could accommodate indoor sports such as basketball, could be volleyball, it could be classes of sort, but something that could be done year round. And that could be somewhat of a revenue. I'm not saying it's going to pay for itself. Councilman Jackson took that class in school, and he shared with us many years ago that Parks and Rec wasn't going to pay for itself. But if we could get some type of cost offset, I think that would be really good. But it would allow for one thing. If we were, because at the rate of growth, I don't know how many years it's going to be that we're going to have, land that would be available for that matter. But I think we'd be wise to set aside, particularly the timing of this coming budget year, that we'll be making our final payment, for the land at Castleberry Road. That frees up a little money. That we've been utilizing on an annual basis now, I think for about 8 years, if memory serves correct. But we can't borrow a down payment. Many years ago when in preparing to get the land over at Castleberry Road, council made a commitment to start setting aside money in a Parks and Recreation fund. That fund still exists, and this council, could consider, setting aside money and start putting out feelers, with different landowners to see if there could be an interest. And again, if it's just getting the land for now, and potentially going ahead, we talked about projects on the shelf, potentially looking with an architectural group, someone like we've already worked with for our park, and look at some concepts. Consult with in Parks and Rec, Mr. Chris, and see if he's aware of any examples yourself. Mr. Bone, any examples that you've seen in your. We could go visit some places, but going ahead and looking at what might could service as wide of options as we could afford, and going ahead and kind of keep getting some estimates for that. Again, having that project on the shelf to where if we ever do get that phone call again, and we've been fortunate enough to have that phone call happen several times. Yes, indeed, it might be a little while before that phone call comes again, but it could come. And by having a plan for something, that's going to put us in a much stronger position to actually get some significant cost share, which we have had. We've been fortunate enough to receive on our current park.
One thing I'd like to, so I have put, some new recreation building, basketball, volleyball classes, develop concepts, visit some facilities to help with that. One thing Steph and I talked about a little bit, along similar lines, I know the council has, done a great job, setting aside some extra money to have available, for when those projects come available. One thought that staff's talked about is possibly further that up through a fund balance policy or goal, so that, we can try to plan and anticipate, what the needs are. Is that something that you would like to see, maybe, a fund balance policy?
I think it'd be an interesting topic to discuss, yes. I think it'd be an interesting topic to discuss. That was another main factor of this current year's budget, So far as the previous couple of budgets, we had started to, we were having to reach back into fund balance to pay operational expenses, and that's not a good policy. And so we put ourselves in more sure footing with the current year budget. And but so far as the healthy guideline as to, I guess, a percentage of an annual budget that might be set aside, that I think that'd been an interesting conversation to have.
And I know y'all talked about it before, but kind of bringing these two concepts together, you know, vision for some things that the town may be interested in investing in, is also, you know, figuring out ways to pay for it, you know, would be a capital improvement plan.
Yep.
Is that something that you would like for me to add to the list as well?
Capital improvement plan,
Yeah.
I think it would be a good thing, yes. And again, just to be clear, I'm not talking about trying to jump on buying a piece of land right away and then immediately start trying to build something on it again. As budget, you know, and potential other opportunities such as grants would allow. But in the meantime, start planning, you know, for it. Initially, when we first purchased the 30 acres, you know, 30 sounds like a lot, you know, and we were already thinking building for a potential, like especially on the 5-acre west side piece that's currently under development right now. Well, we found out pretty quick, 5 acres, you know, is not big enough for the sewer, it's not big enough for parking, and by the time you put a building on it, it's a pretty small building. And so that was just to kind of bring everybody, you know, kind of back it up a little bit. And where I'm coming from is this has been talked about for a number of years. And but, you know, and maybe we do get lucky. Maybe we get lucky and get a piece of land that potentially is in close proximity to the current piece. But even if it's not, you know, town of Archer Lodge isn't but so big so far as to go from Castleberry Road over to another road. And who knows, maybe spreading out the traffic a little bit might not be a bad thing. And but I do think that having that other option that we could utilize year round, I think in you know, future generations, in fact, probably very near term, you know, would really appreciate, you know, having that.
I agree. I think parkland is important because that's what a lot of the early surveys, people said they wanted to see. But I think more important than that is during last year's budget process, we had several residents make comments to the fact of, if Archer Lodge were dissolved, what would I lose? Nothing. I don't get any services. I don't have kids. My kids don't participate. So I think something we need to start doing is a better job of what services would the public like to see, and try to figure out a way to implement some of those services. Because it was a recurring comment of, what do I get from the town?
It may be time for us to do another survey. Let's see if we can get a consensus from folks out there.
Isn't, okay, guilty, I haven't done the survey yet, but isn't that one of the inquiries in the survey at the end, asking the citizens for, the residents for feedback?
Yeah.
It's touched on, if council would like to do, I think we could expound upon what was, we've already put out there and get some more detail
Oh, okay.
as a follow-up.
But the one thing I think is important is we need to separate what Archer Lodge residents say versus non-residents. Because right now, the survey is open to residents and non-residents. And it's easy to want a whole lot of stuff when you're not paying for it. So
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be some way to distinguish that this is the survey information from Archer Lodge residents, because quite frankly, that's all I care about.
I think a couple of the initial questions ask, what is your relationship? Do you live in the town? Are you outside the town limits? So that would differentiate who's the
Right.
actual.
But when we've had surveys like that in the past on what people wanted for Parks and Rec, everything was tallied together. It wasn't, here's the responses and the preferences from Archer Lodge residents versus non-residents. It's, here's the result.
Yeah.
With no
Ben, are you
separation.
guys able to
Well,
categorize?
What I was going to say is the nice thing about the platform that we're using is we can filter out what we like. So if we wanted to see what do people want that own property in Archer Lodge but don't live in Archer Lodge,
Yeah.
we could filter that. We could filter it, and probably what we're mostly going to look at is people that live in Archer Lodge and not necessarily people that own businesses, but we're able to filter it out in case we did want to see maybe if people that work in Archer Lodge, they think it's a good place to work. So we can definitely filter out.
Thought we had something worked out where the GPS thing
Location,
with geolocations.
So one of the things that, we want to be sensitive about, doing surveys, we talked about this as staff to, as far as, do we want to ask for email address? Do we want to ask for, address? And that's useful information to have, but, some people may be wary of sharing that information and may want for it to be more anonymous. So that's where we, are kind of perplexed on how to structure that, because you may not get as much participation if it's not anonymous. But then on the other hand, it lends itself to a scenario where, you don't know who you're getting results from. It could be somebody, from New York or Hawaii or, another
Flowers
country.
Plantation.
Or somebody could be doing more than one. You have that capability.
and I would just add, that's why it's important to try and get as much people to fill that out as we can, because it'd be nice just to get a few responses, and that would give us an idea, but we really want this to be folks that have lived here for 30-plus years, folks that have just moved here, because this really is a growing community, and we want to get as many responses as we can. So, I would just plug that and say, if you can get it out on different Facebook groups, or if you've got a HOA group, we really want to get as many people as we can to respond so that we can get a true feel for what are people wanting in the community.
Do we have a deadline for that? Are we going to?
There's a deadline on the
March
March
4th?
4th. It's the Wednesday. Basically, we wanted a couple of days to be able to analyze it before we put together an agenda for the March budget retreat.
All right, so I've added, do a better job to add to your comment, Ms. Bruton. You said do a better job of pursuing community input. And what I also heard was do a better job explaining value the residents receive from the town. And then what Mr. Jackson said about doing another updated survey about desired services and facilities. And if I may take another point of professional privilege, question. So again, I'm on week 2. So I'm still learning the community and, some of the history and everything. Going back to, make sure that we've got projects on the shelf and so forth. Has the town in the past, I know you talked about having those relationships with legislators and so forth. Has the town officially done a legislative agenda in the past? I know probably the town might support, endorse the League of Municipalities legislative agenda, but have we developed in the past as a town those projects that we're seeking funding for? I'm making initial contact with legislators now, and of course we're in a primary election right now, so there are a lot of different directions they're going in right now, but, you know, we're gonna be having those conversations, you know, I'm gonna be setting up meetings with them, so, you know, is there a wish list? Is there a list of identified projects? To be able to develop that elevator speech on saying, all right, this is what we have, this is what we don't have, this is what we need, this is what we need from you.
We have participated for a number of years in what's called a town hall day. Clayton, in conjunction with that day that's on Jones Street in Raleigh, they have had a dinner, you know, at their town hall. And we, you know, all the towns, council, manager, administrators, et cetera, you know, have been invited. Now, during COVID, you know, that you know, went off the table. This past year, though, they did revive it, and we had some representation there. And we had opportunities, you know, again, to speak with our representatives. I mean, our representatives, I got them my cell phone number. I talk to them, you know, I'm not saying I talk to them every week, but I do talk with them. And so to kind of let them know, and from time to time, they'll reach out and with interest, you know, hey, and it might be, hey, we're considering X, you know, how do you think that might have an impact? And we've had those discussions here. Most recently, a lot of those discussions have been around zoning and land planning, happening, Mr. Jason. And we've been asked by, you know, other towns, even the county, from time to time to support, you know, a letter, you know, of support to go in with them, either for or against, you know, something that's moving through, you know, the House and or Senate, you know, in Raleigh. And so there's that always could be improved. I mean, that always could be improved. But again, we've had a good track record. It was started by Mr. C.L. Gobble. He always talked about having projects on the shelf. And just to kind of, you know, put it in perspective, that last phone call that I got, it was at lunchtime. I had just gone through the Chick-fil-A line, and I got a call, and from one of our legislative representatives, and I was simply asked, hey, if there were some monies available, what would you need? And we had a pretty thorough list, and that last amount was shade over 2.3 million. So I'd say that preparation and that accessibility with that phone call paid off. And so making those, you know, looking out, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And honestly, that was another thing that has been talked about in the past. And I mean, we're already 16 years old, you know, so a lot of things that we were looking at, of course, big goals to start off with when we had that empty cigar box, as Mayor Pro Tem Castleberry talked about a little while ago. Those priorities, you know, were finding a piece of land for a town hall. Check, you know. When we realized we had built town hall smaller than we needed, we had some funding and were able to borrow the rest at fortunately a very low interest rate for phase 2. Check, we got that. You know, we decided to start putting away funds, you know, for and it basically worked out to be a down payment, but it was well worth it. And because we also, not only did we have enough for a down payment, bless you, by the way, not only do we have enough for a down payment, but when we got the Partif grant, that wasn't just $1 million grant. That was a 50-50. So the town put up $500,000 and we were reimbursed $500,000. So again, in some of these things, you've got to have, you know, a little bit in reserve to be able to take advantage of. But we've had numerous opportunities that we've been able to capitalize on, and a lot of that was maintaining relationships, you know, with our other fellow elected officials, that, you know, from time to time, you know, have been able to, you know, really look out after us when they heard of an opportunity and reached out. But again, had we not had that project on the shelf, you're not going to get a grant and saying, hey, we'd love $50,000, or hey, we'd love $250,000. And when we get it, we'll figure out what we do with it. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. But if you say, yes, this has been a priority for X amount of time, you know, council's in support of this, and we're looking at fill in the blank. We started several years back putting aside money for this. We've actually, you know, contracted with an architectural engineer to get some conceptual drawings and some, you know, financial estimates. And this is in round numbers. This is what it's going to take. That's what really gets the attention, you know, of folks when you're applying for a grant. And so far, it's really worked well for us.
Mayor, Council, I know, again, you know, sometimes I think it's helpful to have an outsider perspective, and, you know, I'm an outsider right now. I hope to be inside very near future, but, you know, coming in as a new person, you know, one of the things that I saw in looking at meetings online was, you know, how important transportation is and how big an issue traffic is in the community. And I know, you know, we don't own streets, but in regards to transportation, is there anything that, whether start, stop, continue, that you would like to put on the list somewhere in regards to transportation?
There have been some discussions about speed limits, you know, and honestly, that's been talked about for, you know, that subject has come up on and off for a while now. But I do think it would be good to have maybe a representative of DOT to come to us. The last time, Mr. Jason, you know, shared some information for us, and it appeared that DOT may already be looking at parts of Archer Lodge streets, at their streets, by the way, that are in Archer Lodge, or their highway roads, whatever you want to call them. It appears that they may already be looking at changing some speed limits in sections. But to make sure that we are in that conversation, I think would be very important, you know, that we try to reach out to, you know, our representative and get some more information on that, and potentially have them come and give a presentation about where they are on that subject, and for us to review. I know I've done a windshield inventory, you know, one Sunday afternoon, early fall, and that we passed out to members of council here a few months back, I believe. And, you know, as to where we are, we have a pretty wide range, you know, of speed limits in Archer Lodge. But I think that you know, that is one thing that I've heard of numerous times for a number of years now, and, you know, speed limits. And I realize that, you know, just changing the speed limit, that doesn't necessarily change, you know, behavior, but it's a start. It is a start. And I do think, you know, it already had been mentioned earlier, you know, about an additional sign, and we've talked about that before as well, and potentially. And when I talk about the sign, I'm talking about the electronic monitoring sign, which is right here across the street. I think it might not be a bad idea to look into what those costs are potentially for a mobile unit, you know, that could be moved around, you know, to a few places. And maybe even one that would keep a log, you know, of the frequency and potential, you know, speed of when it, you know, goes above and beyond, you know, the speed limit. And that way we can work with our, you know, law enforcement partner right now, the Sheriff's Department, and thank goodness for the job that they've done for us for many years, and hopefully many to come. And, but that maybe we can help bring attention to some problem areas, so to speak, also the Highway Patrol. You know, we're fortunate that Highway Patrol still works this area, although you don't see them as much. And that was a pro, you know, for, you know, contracting formally, with an agency as to where we have a dedicated force. But if until that day comes, at least have something to help, point them in the right direction of an area that might could be needed. Now, understanding in this next year and a half, 2 years potentially, things are gonna probably come to a crawl, with our road widening projects and everything that you see the Duke Energy, you see them changing, the utility poles and widening those out. So I was talking with the fire chief last week, and that has actually slowed traffic quite a bit. So he and I were talking about just what is it going to look like when they start, eating up, asphalt or expanding, asphalt. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
we've had some good discussions with the planning board on the speed limit. Since I first brought that.
Jason, can you get to a microphone?
Yeah. Want me to go over there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I could have brought it.
It's okay. So at our last planning board meeting, we had discussions on the speed limits and in town. So I have put together some maps that show where we have speed limit signs in town and where we do not, and there are some roads that do not have them. So we have an exact idea of what the speed limits are in town, apart from whatever DOT's information says. And we had really good discussions. Our plan was to present that to you in March, so that we
Correct.
could have that discussion again. And I have already reached out to a representative from DOT and asked them to be there at that meeting, so that once I give you my information, if we wanted to continue and you had any questions for them on how to go about that process, or if they had any information on the lowering of speed limits for a covered bridge, that would be helpful. But he does plan to be there, just an update on that.
Outstanding.
I think I had something else in mind, but just wanted to put that out there.
Well, Jason, and I think on the mobile speed unit, I believe there's probably some traffic safety grants that we could possibly pursue to acquire such equipment. So,
And I know that one we can move, like, I know Mike has thought about moving it over to like the park for a little bit. I know we have to obviously get permission and whatever for that, but we do have the ability to move that. I don't know how that works with DOT and approving it and all that, but
Well, closer to the park was high on my list as an
Yeah.
alternate, placement. Then, particularly now that we're going to be crossing the street, either right or left-hand turn or directly across. I think it would behoove us, be a good move, to try to do what we can, for, public safety on there.
get them ready. Yeah.
That can, at times, depending on the season of the year, that's going to be a high-volume area, in a very small place, so.
Do we just have the one unit that's across the street?
As far as I know.
Okay, I was thinking that was it, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, currently it is.
I'll just throw this out there. At the last meeting, Councilman Jackson had mentioned maybe having someone from our district, DOT district, come out and meet with someone from the church to talk about the crosswalk that'll be put in over here. So our district engineer's actually coming out Wednesday to meet with Chief Driver, who does building and grounds for the church, as well as one or two other people, just to get their input on what would be the best location for the crosswalk over here.
And that's just coming Wednesday?
Yep.
That's
yep,
great.
Yes, sir.
That's great.
Wednesday afternoon. And so, reason why I brought that up is we'll have someone from the district office here. We could probably go ahead and ask and see if they have thoughts on funding opportunities for more mobile electronic.
And that's something Campbell could probably help with too.
I just want to get that on y'all's radar.
Is that Mr. Jackson?
I think he started to say something. Mark?
I was just gonna say fantastic.
Great. I think both Chief Driver and Mr. Bill will be very happy to meet with them Wednesday, don't you?
I do.
What else would you like to see started? So we talked, well, and one thing another thing that we talked about with staff was maybe trying to, even though we don't own streets as a town, that, we want to be a source of information for the community and be that conduit and trusted source for residents and non-residents alike, and partner with DOT to try to get as much information from them as we can about plans, as far as, road widening projects and so forth. And so that we have that information as much as DOT will give us and put it on our website, so that we can, again, be that source for people. Other thoughts?
I'll tell you, this is kind of a continue, but it's so early in the game, it kind of files into start too, but appreciate your, communication to council. I think regular communication to council, the communication is such a key on anything with this business, right? And I really enjoyed seeing that and look forward to seeing that, going forward. I think that's going to be very helpful.
Thank you. And thanks to the staff for your help with that as well. So I'll put continue to grow positive communication with council and community.
Kind of also along that line of communication, and also earlier what we were talking about so far as keeping up with our representatives and also peers, but there's numerous other groups that we are affiliated with. I would probably more technically put that under continue, but that there's Campo, Central Pines, Mayor's Association, Economic Development Board. All of those have a place, and thank goodness we all have a seat at the table. Might be a small seat, but at least it's a seat at the table, on those. And we just never know, what opportunities could present themselves by being affiliated, with those towns. Because, it's easy for us to sit here with blinders on, and I don't say that in a negative way, but it's easy for us to sit here and focus on what we have on the agenda or what issues we may be having. But other towns are having the same stuff, I can promise you. When I meet with the other mayors, I hear a lot of the same stuff. And so it is of great value, I think, to continue our relationships with these organizations. And, so we can keep our kind of ear to the ground, of how other people do things, and listen out for opportunities that maybe we've not thought about. I mean, we've done a lot of things right. I'm not going to say we're perfect, but we've done a lot of things right. There's always room for improvement. And I think it's a great value that we continue our relationship with these organizations that we're, currently working with.
All right, other things you would like to start?
David, in May, I've already talked with Kim and several months ago, but with the Economic Development Board, which I'm on, and I've been on there 15 years now, and every town has got a representative from each municipality or area. You know, and, we have eaten lunch in every town in Johnson County, except Archie Lodge. And I've been on, like I say, I've been on there 15 years, and, we won't, and I'll bring this up, later, but, last meeting, we had, Commissioner Ted Godwin just come over. That's under his sort of jurisdiction, the Economic Development Board. So he came over, and it's like Matt was going back a while ago. You don't ever know who you're gonna meet at these places. I do a lot of these JOCO works in which representatives, senators, all that come to that stuff in Smithfield. And, I go down there because I want to meet them, keep our name in the pot all the time for anything. But I would love for us to have the meal out here one time and let everybody come. Everybody talks about how nice the park and stuff going on out here, and I'd like for them to see it. And do my diligence of doing it. We usually have, it's only about 22 people, and most time the towns feed them. So me and Kim talked about, I've already got Janelle gonna be talking with Kim about the kinds of food, whatever they do, and get somebody to cater it at the community center instead of changing everything here. And then see if any of them want to come down and tour the building. Hardly nobody has ever been through our building. And, I would like to see them because, you know, we're all proud. When you see people come in and look at the cotton and the backing and stuff like that in that room, it's, you know, it just blows them away. You know, some of them think it's weed, so it really blows them away. But, you know, those tobacco leaves were very important. Sure.
Yep.
To this area, and, but I do want to do that and, go ahead and start getting on the list. You only have to do it like every 2 or 3 years or something like that, but I think it's fully thing. It don't cost us any dues to be part of this. I've never put any gas, I've never turned any mileage, I always do it on my own. And, but I think it's important that you see the people that we need to see, and I've met, you know, from Donna White and right on down to, Tom Tillis, Trey Lewis, his head man, from Macclesfield, North Carolina. And, but, the people like that is who you really want to get in front of. Of course, Miss Donna's, a blessing to us. But, they're trying to change the districts around some. So, hopefully she's gonna still be over in our leadership, so, but anyway. That's something that I wanna do for the town, and, but Kim and I are gonna take care of that with Janelle. She's our secretary, treasurer down there, so.
Clyde, when was it that they came to the community center one evening and gave us a presentation? That's been a number of years ago, hasn't it?
2020.
That was 2020?
That's the day
Wow,
my
that-
brother passed away.
Wow. That was a lot longer than I had thought, but they did come and gave us a good presentation and that night.
So, Mayor, I put down what you said about reaching out to Highway Patrol. That would be somebody good. Are there other folks that might be beneficial for us to reach out to, community college, or is there anybody else that you would like for us to begin outreach to? school system. I mean, I know that, you know, Chris and town have had, relationships and, you know, with the schools, and, you know, certainly something that we want to continue and build upon.
It's always good to try to keep those doors open. Mark, I feel I want to call on you because I just want to make sure you're included on this. Is there anybody that you think that we need to reach out to, that you haven't already heard that name?
I think we're okay.
Okay. Sorry to exercise that voice. I hope you feel better than you sound. But, any rest of council can think of any other groups that we need to try to stay engaged with or at least be aware of?
Or is there anything else you want to add to the start list? If not, Mayor, what I would suggest, maybe a 2 or 3 minute recess.
Okay,
Allow folks to do a restroom break,
all right.
and then just come back and talk about priorities for upcoming budget year, and then priorities for future years. And what I would like to do with that, just to give you a little bit of a heads up. So, you know, want to work on each list, brainstorm, and then what I have some little stickers that staff got for us. And then what I'll ask you to do, depending on the number of ideas that we put up there, ask each council member to put X number of dots as far as their top priorities, so that we can try to get, whether it's 3 or 5, whatever number sounds best as far as the top priorities to consider for the upcoming budget year. And then, you know, what I would also like to look is, you know, years 2 through 5, you know, 5, 10, and then maybe 10, 20 if we feel like we can go there as well. And then that would conclude our discussion tonight, and that would give staff and me a lot of information to go on as we move forward with the budget.
Great. All right, let's have a short recess. Good time. Stretch my legs, isn't it?
To touch or commercial recruitment or anything like that you might want to start?
Are we able to do a moratorium on subdivisions?
No.
I know the answer, but anyway. We'll put that in the I wish category.
I will say we don't have any locations over, as far as I'm aware.
Pine Level's got one.
And then also, one thing Kim mentioned during the break was reaching out to the Johnson County Commissioners that, you know, certainly don't want to take for granted that relationship and try to take more opportunity. And so there is conflict, correct? Is there always a conflict between our meeting times and their meeting times? Like every single time?
Mostly.
So I think, you know, certainly, you know, what Kim was suggesting was, you know, if we could have somebody there, you know, be able to speak.
It would be ideal, as I've mentioned to you, there's also a county manager / town administrators, town managers meeting that goes along too. We can confirm what that date and time is and make sure that, you know, you and/or a representative is there. That is a meeting that was being attended regularly. Not so much during the transition, but it was being attended to. So I definitely would think that would be a really good one, you know, to re-engage and make sure that we have a regular presence at.
They do have the morning meeting that doesn't conflict.
Do they? Okay.
10 a.m.
All right. So that's certainly an opportunity, and I'm certainly willing to go to that, you know, from time to time to be that face and voice and.
And Councilman Davis, isn't that kind of more or less the planning session, and then they have their their meeting, their formal meeting that evening, right?
I think it's kind of both. They do have more stuff going on at night just for the people that can't make it during the day.
And I'll make sure to get on their notification list, and I've already reached out to Manager Hester, and known him for quite some time, and so we'll develop that relationship as well. All right, so moving on to priorities, specifically for the upcoming budget. So this is, again, staff really wants, clarity and, as much direction as we can get from council as we're, particularly now at the preliminary stage of working on the budget. So the more guidance that we can get from you as a board right now, the better we can draft a budget that addresses what you want us to address. So what are your priorities for the upcoming budget year?
Public safety, parks and rec.
Are there, and thank you for that general guidance, are there specific things from that you would like to see? Facilities, programs, initiatives. Mayor talked about how, we've been, developing the relationship with the sheriff's office, developing the relationship with the fire department, have active communication with them, and we're, setting aside some resources if the law enforcement relationship changes at some point in the future. But specifically, what would you like to see in those two areas?
I guess the funds for the lights at the community center, upkeep of the community center. Contingency issues, I guess, with the new park, if they're funds for equipment for sports and stuff.
What else? And bear with me, my handwriting gets worse as the night progresses. Apologies on that. So Mayor's looking at these lists, and I think, start, stop, continue, and feel free to walk around to get a better look at this, but this could be things that, you can look at, and that's why we did it. So to give some background, to give you input on what you want to prioritize for the upcoming year.
I would add, since we've already put the ALCC, this coming budget year, very quickly after enacting the budget, is going to be a big anniversary, for the nation, right? We put on a really nice Family Fun Day. The town has been a major sponsor of that event since the beginning. And maybe we need to have a conversation with the community center. What are they planning for this year? Are they, for the 250th anniversary? I mean, are they looking at trying to have a larger fireworks display? Are they looking at trying to, do some things that they don't do on a normal year? And, there may be some things that we could help them with, in that. I think it'd be worth, I think you've already had a conversation, with Dean Castleberry, but to continue that conversation and to have it, that ask about that, the Family Fun Day, because it'll be here before we know it.
Yes, sir. So yes, I've had a meeting last week with Mr. Castleberry. Also, Chris was at a conference, and so he was unable to attend, so I attended the board meeting on Thursday. It was hosted here because the early elections going on at the community center. And that was certainly one of the things that they talked about on the agenda with the 250. Dean gave me kind of a heads up when we talked on Tuesday that they would like to do a little bit more for the fireworks. I talked with Kim. We've already got $1,500 in the budget as part of our contribution to the community center on fireworks. That's standard what we do for fireworks. But Dean has mentioned that they would like to do a little bit more because it's $250. And so I did ask him to write a letter to that. They also orally, mentioned, I think we've had, through Chris's funding for the Recreation Center, we've supported the face painting for the Family Fun Day, and they were wanting to confirm that. They also looking to add a few other programs. They asked about possibly funding, I think there's a fairy hair activity, which I think puts
Shiny stuff
in the hair. So that was an oral request, and I'll pass that along to Chris and Kim for for their information. They're looking to do some other things, possibly car show. I did see something over the weekend, and I shared it with Dean and Ms. Bunn about some places are doing a mural, just signify the 250, and I thought that was a neat idea that they may want to take a look at. So they're certainly looking to do some special things, and as a town, Chris and I and staff, we're engaged in those conversations, and so that's a good thing. We want to continue to grow that partnership. But yes, that's that doesn't happen every year. This is a special year, so there might be a good opportunity to get some additional consideration. What else would you like to see? Priorities for the
This isn't really anything specific, but I would like to reduce cost. I think there was a lot of fluff in the last budget, and I think we can sharpen our pencils and reduce cost.
You mentioned an idea a moment ago, or well, earlier, not a moment, but earlier, about having a discussion about some percentage goals that go to these fund balances and savings. I would like to have that conversation, and to where, we talk about that. I think that would be useful guidance, not only for the immediate, but potentially, for future as well. As we've talked about, if you don't have the money in reserve, it really puts you in a bind. Any Dave Ramsey fans in here, you hear about, he says if you have the emergency fund, an emergency becomes an inconvenience. And,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm finished.
One thing I wanted to highlight, and this is something that Marcus shared with Kim, Ben, and I recently, is cyber crime. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They don't just go after the larger communities. We see stuff all the time about, communities that are getting hit. And, it's a balance. We got Freedom of Information request today asking for, vendor information, which is public record, and we have to provide public records. But it also, in the back of your mind, you question, why are they asking this? And, you know, is this something that could come back and haunt us? And yet we have to balance that public requirement for transparency, but also try to protect our community as well. And, you know, a lot of these cities and counties, I mean, you know, they're getting, it's not just short-term costs, I mean, they're losing money.
Yeah. Like ransom attacks and
Ransom
ransomware.
attacks, or, you know.
A lot of times they'll get like a fake invoice, and it looks perfectly real, the town will pay it, the town will never see that money again, and it's $500,000, $1 million.
Well, and they ask for what vendors are we using, so, I mean, that gives them the information they potentially, I'm not saying that this request was nefarious or anything, but it could be, and that could give them information to, you know, provide, you know, to make that request, to make it look more reasonable and realistic. So, I guess my point being is, you know, we need to make sure that we protect ourselves appropriately, but also that's another reason to have some, you know, funds in our fund balance so we can absorb if and when we get that.
Yeah.
So if you
You
don't mind,
you bring up a good point. It's not only cybersecurity for the town, right, but also the people in the town. And potentially bringing, you know, speakers on in issues such as that would be helpful to folks, particularly our seniors.
Yeah.
I know our seniors are targeted to probably a greater degree than most everybody else. And you know, phone calls and text and emails and that type of thing, but particularly phone calls. And, you know, when especially a shut-in, you know, sometimes they feel like they want to answer every call. And if somebody can just get them to talking, you know, in at the wrong place, wrong time sort of thing, you know, there could be some information, you know, shared that could actually cause harm, you know, to that individual. And, you know, that might be something to consider, you know, looking at, you know, folks that could come speak, you know, at the senior group and that we already sponsor, but also could come speak maybe at a community meeting, or maybe at a sponsored event, you know, so to speak. And that I kind of, you know, might put on the start/priority. You know, that's not a major, but it is something that, particularly if it's low to no cost, that could be a big benefit, you know, to folks if they would like to take advantage of it.
Definitely. So put on start resources presentation for seniors, or is something else, a different wording you wanted to put on start?
I think that's perfectly fine. If you want to use, you know, cybersecurity or you know, phishing or spam, you know, something of that, maybe not spam, but maybe phishing, you know, cyber protection, if you will, for individuals.
And Kim sent me a text just giving me information about maybe increasing our insurance
Yeah.
and with the league as far as cybersecurity. And there are some other services that they can provide and others can provide as well. I've got good connections with the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, and they, since I was on the 911 board for 9.5 years, and you know, maybe some resources that we can bring. I know the National Guard was doing a lot of evaluations for cybersecurity. Their priorities are for counties, particularly with county elections, but that may be another source that we can reach out to. And then I think there's some other things that Kim mentioned that we could do with the bank in relation to cybersecurity as well. Going on seniors, Mayor, one of the things you were talking about. So one community I served as town manager, you know, that particular county was very aggressive and very desirous of getting as many communities with senior centers So I haven't had a chance to really dive into the number of senior centers that are here in Johnson County. I don't know where I'm assuming there's one in Clayton. Is there one in Clayton and
There's one in
Smith?
Clayton.
Yes, there is one in Clayton.
But, this particular county had 7 senior centers across the county. It was a smaller county than.
And there's a number of them in Johnson County. And,
But, that may be something that we want to pursue is, reaching out to the senior center and maybe see if there's a way that we can get more services here in Orchard Lodge that they provide.
see what those potentials are. And I'm not speaking for him, but the man on the screen that shows M, he has spoken for years to have like a resource center, possibly a library. And what I would like, kind of back along that line that I was speaking a while ago, your first word there is resources. So if nothing else, as we identify topics of concern or topics that could help people, have links from our website, try to promote, those things after they vetted and confirm, it would be a help to people. Try to be a resource, for topics like that would be of help to folks. And I would say all age groups, but, young families all the way to seniors. And, but that was just one topic to mind because we were talking about cybersecurity for the town. I assume that, does the league have maybe some type of training that we have participated in the past? And,
They have cybersecurity free trainings that they offer every now and then. I think I'm taking one the next week or two. It's through one of their preferred partners, DC3. They offer cybersecurity. They also do webinars on how to get your website ADA compliant, things like that. And I know multiple staff try to take advantage of that as often as we can.
okay. I think that's great. I know at work we do it annually, and it's probably not a bad idea for, all of our staff. And because I don't know what number we're up to now, probably 4 or 5. Several of you, if not the very first day of your employment with us, easily within the first few days, you've had an email from me that I did not send. That I did not send. Yeah. And thank goodness each one of you contacted me directly or somebody here contacted me directly. Did you happen to? No, it's their first day. I'm going to say that in person. I plan to drop by after I get off of work. I'm not going to send an email to welcome somebody, not when I can just drop by, on my way home and shake their hand and welcome them. And, but that has happened a number of times already. So that's, one of the reasons why it's, on my mind.
And there are some additional educational opportunities. I know there was one firm that we used in one jurisdiction where I worked. I forget the name of it. Ben, I don't know, do we do anything like that? But I know it was like required training that each employee had to do every quarter for cybersecurity.
You typically do.
And it's generally a couple of $1,000s a year. But that couple $1,000s can be a drop in the bucket for, something, if we had a phishing attack, it would cost us
Or
$500,000.
the liability exposure.
That might be something to consider.
That could be a conversation with our IT vendor as well. A good friend of mine is a budget analyst in a town a little bigger than we are, and they do their IT department will send them phishing attempts.
Oh, yeah.
To test them?
And if they click on it, if
You have
they
to do more
follow it,
training.
they have a required training that they have to do because they fell for it. So maybe that could be, maybe that could be a conversation. We're already paying our IT vendor. Maybe they could add that on.
Well, and let me just emphasize, it's not just for staff. We've got other people that have email addresses for the town too. council, the planning board.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's maybe something that everybody needs to, do.
I'll add, and I've already spoken on this, but, that project on the shelf, but, as a priority for the upcoming year to just start that process of looking at neighboring towns, as a multi-use building, for Parks and Rec. Ask some questions, hey, if you had to do it over again, what would you do different? That's one of the first questions I always ask when I'm talking to somebody that's build a shop or build a house or whatever, and just to log that back, for future reference. And but just to go ahead and start that process and gathering information, and so potentially look back on what the cost was to work with architectural engineer, to have, some items, planned, that have now come to fruition, but to, get some type of estimate, what it might take to get some conceptual drawings or possibly conceptual plans and, on paper. Nowadays digital, but that could be printed out on paper. And, so we have it. And,
I've visited Clayton, Wendell, Nightdale, Zebulon, Benson, Smithfield, since I've been here, just taking tours. Every one of them said they wish they would have went bigger.
and that's always,
They would have went bigger.
that's right, that's always the case, right?
And it's always more electrical outlets, more data ports, more storage area.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are all good things, and again, that's his budget and quite frankly, as footprint of land allows, right? Because early on in discussions, you remember those, early on discussions, we thought that 5 acres on the west side, man, we could put a building there. Well, yeah, we can put a building there, a very small building that going to house the loan equipment and that we have, and thank goodness we're gonna have that, right? And, but it was nowhere near, the size that we needed for septic, repair area, and also parking. If we could have put a building there, but they'd had to park on the other side of the street.
Walk across the street there.
That's right. We'd have to build a pedestrian bridge.
Imagine those Facebook comments.
So, I know, we had the presentation from Ms. Beasy on the paying classification study, and I know that's still under consideration, but, at the juncture that that's decided, if the council wants to pursue a paying classification study, then I think that would certainly be added to the list at that time.
One question I thought about after she left the building, and perhaps she spoke it and I just was writing down a note and just didn't hear her. But so far as the timing of that, if council felt like that was a good thing to proceed with during the March council, as early potentially as the March council meeting, when did she say when she could jump on that project and potentially complete that for us?
It take approximately 90 days.
90 days?
It depends on where she is now on her schedule, but I would say typically it's a 90 day.
Not 90 days from start to finish, not saying that she could start tomorrow.
That's right, correct,
It
correct.
might be a
So-
30-day or however many day delay before she could start it.
But there is a potential, if council acted on that subject in the March meeting, we may have some benefit, from that in this upcoming budget. There's a potential.
And
For not-
I
not-
certainly think she may not be finished with the entire project, but she could certainly prioritize certain portions of it.
Yeah.
In both of her MOAs, it spells out, will be approximately 3 months and the contract can begin in February 2026 or the time mutually agreed upon. So it sounds like she's got some availability now, and you were right, the 3 months.
Unless she's contracted with someone else since. Is that, that's dated November? Are you-
Well, it's both of them. It's the new one, that's, you know, with the $4,500. It says the 3 months in February 2026, and so does the larger one at the 7,200. So they both have the same thing.
I know the previous one is approximately 90 days.
I think it'd be very worthwhile, information to have, particularly, for budget planning. I mean, and that's just one reason, but the timing is good, to have that, in my opinion. I really support the speed limit sign, an additional sign. I think it would be wise to consider something that could be, mobile. But I do believe that, particularly at one of our priority points, is around the park. I don't think that the widening or anything else would go that far. Clyde, am I correct on that? Have you heard anything? And Mr. Jason, you'd be a good one to ask too. I don't think any of the current construction plans or anything would affect that far down. Do you?
No, I don't think it extends down, Castle Grande at all.
Okay.
Just the intersection area that they might do some work with it, but, I believe it's just covered bridge out.
We've had that ditch bank shaved down. That was a big concern for a while. Thank goodness that's been taken care of. You had mentioned at one point some caution lights, that would be, basically, motion detected, I guess, as they sense a vehicle approaching, they start flashing, and, is that something that DOT, we might have an opportunity through DOT, I guess?
We were trying to see if we could include that with what Ben had been working on with that grant money.
Okay.
With, like piggybacking off of the money we were getting for the crosswalk over here at the church and community center.
10-4,
um,
10-4.
To use that, and it didn't seem like that was possible, but they had told us that there should be other grant opportunities for
Right.
a project like that.
Right.
Because I think that as we open up and build out the west side and it starts getting traffic, that's gonna need to be a priority, especially with, I believe that might be one of the roads where there is no speed limit sign in the town limits. Which is dangerous with a community park there.
Yeah.
And people driving as fast as they please.
We need to,
So I think, we really want to pursue that, and I believe that we don't have anything concrete yet,
Okay.
but we will definitely be pursuing that.
Well, by all means, pursue any opportunity with grants, but I was just thinking prioritizing, items, for the upcoming year. But I think that would be a great compliment, to a speed limit, sign, if that's what council chooses to do. And, I think that would be a great compliment.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add to the list?
I need to look at the continue.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see here.
Feel free to walk around.
Mr. Chris, so far as the equipment, you mentioned a while ago that we are well equipped. Is there anything that, a shortage other than herbicides and different things, fertilizers and that type of stuff that we're going to be using, but so far as equipment wise, is there anything that comes to mind?
I mean, at some point, we're gonna have to, update our bunker rake. We're currently using the one that can, the bunker rake.
Rake?
Yeah, it's the machine that we use to smooth the infield.
That
out.
three-wheel,
Yeah,
that old John
yeah,
Deere.
yeah.
And we've had, the community center's had that thing forever.
Correct. And, I mean, luckily, we haven't put that much money into it, but at some point, that's gonna need updated, but I'm not asking for a new one right now.
Yeah, maybe we can-
Not while we have one that's perfectly working for us.
Like, squeeze that juice as long
Yes,
as we
sir.
can.
Yes, sir. But
Absolutely.
outside of that, I can't think of any other equipment. I can talk to Marcus and Blake more, but I think we pretty much got everything we need as of right now.
Yeah.
But that's certainly, as you say, you can do your due diligence and communicate with your staff, and that's something that we can address internally,
Sure.
And determine if there are other things that we want to add to that list.
Correct.
So we don't have to necessarily name them all tonight.
No, not at all. Not-
Well, again, we've spoken this, and I apologize, guys, I just need to stretch my legs. You've heard Parks and Recs from numerous, council member tonight, and I think that goes to show, I mean, that's a very visible, tangible, service that
Yes, sir.
that we're all offering and want to make sure we all realize, I still remember, gosh knows, it seems like just a few months ago, really, to me, but I remember standing behind that lectern right center, and it was during a closed session that we were talking about, making a bid and how much we, what we wanted to make for that. And once we agreed to that, we talked about, okay, well, you realize that this bid's accepted, we are formally in the Parks and Recreation business. And, and we knew all along that, getting in the Parks and Recreation business, that wasn't just buying a piece of open land and bush hogging it 2 or 3 times a year and letting people use it as they wanted to. We were looking at programs and things too. And it's exciting that the scope of programs, that are already happening. And I don't even think we're nowhere at capacity, yet with the opportunities anyway,
Yes, sir,
that
most
can be
definitely.
considered. And there's all kinds of opportunity out there, that could be considered. If we could ever get an enclosed, a building, basically, open floor plan that could be used for multiple different things, I mean, that would even expand that potential a great deal. Obviously, that's a crawl before you walk and walk before you run item. And,
Yes, sir.
but, you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere.
All right, anything else you want to add to the list before you vote? And this is not official voting, this is just kind of gauging thought process, it's just part of the brainstorming process. Not committing to anything here tonight. I've given you 5 dots. So you can vote for 5 things. We got, I believe, 15 on the list. Take your time, walk around. You may want to look at some of the other lists. You can put, if you really feel extremely passionate about one thing, you can put more than one thing. So you can put, now, we're not voting on the start, stop, continue, just this list over here in the corner.
Priorities.
Priorities for the upcoming budget year. Vote, you got 5 dots, put those 5 dots on those 2 sheets of paper.
How many dots does each person, I'll do Councilman Jackson.
Yeah, so you get 5.
Okay.
I would add, to the priorities, we've got a start list right here, right? And, that first one, potentially new parkland, I mean, you got to start somewhere. You've at least got to start with, okay, we want to, and it goes back to, talking about the percentage that we want to save. Saying, okay, we want to save X and this is the reason, this is the reason why. And so I would say, again, you got to start somewhere. And, if we at least start having some conversations and putting feelers out, and we may have conversations, put feelers out, and it's like last time. We may go 3 or 4 years, before. We may have, a couple changeovers on council between now and then. And, but we, you know, you gotta start that process. And, because sometimes when you least expect it, there's, you know, there's a change brewing. And the way land is sold now, that signs don't get pounded in the ground anymore. Traffic goes by it for, you know, 2 or 3 months and, you know, no, that's not how it works. One day, all of a sudden, there's a new driveway cut in and, you know, somebody else owns that and you start seeing, you know, movement. Of course, they gotta come to the town for approval, but, so we would know about that, but that's when we would find out the land sold, is when they come, here's the plan.
One thing, if I may, again, take a point of personal privilege. Let's see, in conversations we had today on the one-on-one, I know there's been some talk about, connecting to Greenway. Jason, do we have, what's in our plan now as far as Greenway?
We have a probably outdated bike and pedestrian plan, but Johnston County has just redone their greenways and trails plan, and there are trails that go through or touch Archer Lodge.
So those are trails on their plan that, we can benefit from. And are those construction
Well, there's,
projects funded?
it's just like identifying projects.
Okay.
There's no money being involved or put towards anything yet.
Would that connect it to, Clayton's River Walk Trail?
Yeah, there's one that goes down to the south towards Clayton, and then there's one that goes north up to Wendell, I believe.
So as you said, that may be something we, might be advantageous to our residents, and maybe we won't have to invest in.
Jason, we also already have, some right-of-way dedicated there. It used to be Mr. Charles Johnson's land, but now it's, Vincent Park subdivision. And, from our park back toward, Cover Bridge Road, don't we? We already have right-of-way for an extension of our own walking trail.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that's something that we could, you know, be looking for opportunities to, develop,
Right.
you know?
And I was involved in the meetings throughout the development of this plan for the county. And the group that they had commissioned to work on it identified these sites based on viability and like ease of it, being able to make it attractive to get funding for it and access. So they would have all that data also. They would have looked at it and been like, Archer Lodge has these right of ways, they have, it's a viable site. So, and I'll say out of, they identified 17 projects, that one was like number 2. So it's really high up on the list, and we also had another one that was identified a little bit further down, but still really high up in the list. So if we can find a way, if that's a priority we want to make, to be able to synthesize that with what we have, so if that project becomes available, we can partner with them and put our good foot forward to make sure something like that goes in.
I personally think that's a good idea.
The one thing we need to do maybe first is talk to DOT about their road projects, because when they adopted the complete streets, if you've got a greenway in a designated, say, bike and ped plan, or this plan that you're talking about, when they improve the road, they will include that as part of the project.
Yeah.
And so on that, I had reached out to them about the widening, if there's any way to include bike and ped stuff in that, and they said at that point it was a little too late in the process, because they'd already completed the design work for it.
And that was
So-
a safety project, so it wasn't
Right.
really so much of
Right.
improvement.
It would have been an uphill battle as it was.
Yeah.
But, I had another thought on that, but it just escaped me.
It happens.
Yeah.
So if y'all could take a couple minutes and stretch your legs and use your dots.
Oh, I thought of it. At our last planning board meeting, this might be a priority, but we haven't had a chance to really discuss it yet. But the planning board chair, John Oglesby, had mentioned a desire to pursue a capital, or a transportation plan for the town. and I'm not familiar with what that fully entails, but I imagine it's addressing traffic problems in the town, identifying things that we can do to try to improve that, just transportation in general in the town. So I don't know if
He's
that's.
wanting the town to make the improvements?
Just invest in a plan or contract someone to help us out with the plan.
I know, I'm more familiar with county plans, and that's something that DOT pays for, in conjunction with the NPOs and RPOs. What about town plans? Is that something DOT does?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
I think,
familiar.
to the best of my knowledge, I think that probably would be something that we wouldn't get for free like a county would. There are certainly towns that, and cities that do that, but it probably would be a cost, if we wanted to pursue that. So-
And we don't want to get in the road building business.
Agreed, but,
Yeah, I'm a little cautious on that one. I'd like to hear a little bit more about it, and,
yeah.
I mean, I love knowing what the options are, right? But I mean, at the end game is, does it mean the town's getting the street business? That's,
Right, and I don't believe that's the intent. I believe it's similar to like the bike ped plan or any real advisory document where it's giving you the groundwork to have a seat at the table. So if DOT is trying to make an improvement to a road, and we have a transportation plan that says this meets what we're looking for out of that road, they have more incentive to try to address that concern instead of just doing whatever they please.
Okay.
At least that's my general belief. I'm not fully familiar with it. It was a new topic.
yeah.
And I haven't had much time to look into it.
But we can look into
Right.
it more as we
But I
prepare for
wanted to
the-
bring it up
Sure,
because we're
but it sounds like we're
discussing.
real early in the game,
Yeah.
you know, with some conversations and things that get, some more
J-Cats,
lights on it.
J-Cats will come here now, pick you up and carry you to the doctor and bring you back home. If, you know, it goes through, they got their office on Oak Street down there in Selma now. They built a great big place where they park the buses.
Right.
But they got to go all the way to the school over there behind, where Leonard Parker's barbecue place
Yeah,
is over there,
sorry
the other end of
to throw a
town.
wrench
That's where they fuel up at.
I'm familiar with the light place you're talking about, but I wasn't familiar with the service. So is that, I wasn't familiar that the service extended to us.
Yeah, you turn
That's
right
great.
there, at the oil terminals,
Yeah, I know exactly where you're talking
turn
about.
to the left, right there beyond, and you go by the Selma Park, and it's right up there on the left.
Okay.
But, they did, when I was in the fuel business, they called me down there about putting in a tank and where the buses could fuel up there instead of, they were having to pay them drivers like
Right.
30, 45 minutes more a day just to go fuel up.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna let traffic die down a little bit before I.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this can away and.
DOT mentioned it, like when we were talking about applying for that grant we did get, they said originally, if we don't get approved for this, we could maybe apply for PAL bill funding. So, I don't know,
But it's typically
I
based
think it's a
upon
more rigorous process.
if you own streets.
Yeah.
Power bill's got strings attached, from what I've always been told. I'd be cautious.
When we talked to them, it sounded like there were a lot more, requirements.
Yeah, I'm just cautious when I hear streets. street, well, technically, we do own a street, and that's the interesting part. But anyway, hopefully we'll take care of it. Hopefully we'll take care of it.
I think we need to do some sort of exercise.
We don't have one in the cafeteria? We don't have a trash can?
Trash can right here.
Oh, yeah?
It's just underneath.
Oh, okay. Oh, man. I don't know.
I don't know what for, but we'll talk about that later.
You won't be able to see it from that side, but there's,
There's this bar right here.
yeah, well, it's something hanging. You see that?
Peeling off.
Check. That 2,000, that's hard to believe, that's 26 here you go. Is that 2,000? What was that, was it Broward County?
Yeah, that sounds right.
How about that?
Hang on, check. All right, well done. All right, so let's tally them up here, so. And again, all these are items that we want. So all of these are items that we want to address. Just want to, this will help us prioritize a little bit and give staff additional guidance. So Parks and Rec received 1 vote in general. Lights for ball field, 4. Funds for equipment, 1. 250th anniversary, 4. Review opportunity to reduce costs, 6. Reduce resource center library, 1. And just to reiterate, Mr. Jackson did vote via Ben as well. Cybersecurity training for staff and elected officials, 1. Look at multipurpose use recreation building, Ash Neighbors, 3. Classification pay study, 1 vote. Speed limit enforcement sign unit, 4 votes. And new parkland, 2 votes. So review of opportunity to reduce costs, number 1 priority. We got a 3-way tie for number 2, 250th anniversary. Lights for the ball field. And speed limit enforcement unit. And then it looks like, look at multi-use rec building, came in 5th.
I'd like to say, I mean, obviously you've got to limit it, right, to kind of build a priority list, but if I'd have had a bullet for each one of those, I would have voted for every one. I mean, I think every one of those are very valid things to consider and review. And, I just wanted to put that out there. It was, probably voted for the ones, on my top list. And, but I really don't see anyone up there that's not good for at least review. And, part of that review, like I said, that classification pay study, that would help with another one on that list. And, as some guidance on that, but.
So, and of course, obviously, we may not be able to touch all of these with the budget development. We will certainly, do as much as we can to touch these in the budget development process and provide a specific attention to the ones that council has identified as higher priorities. Realize that they're all high, but, all right, so Mayor, Council, we're at 9:23 now. Can we go till 9:45? Will that be acceptable and work on some, or do we want to continue this at another time?
I'm kind of reaching my limit, guys. What do the rest of you feel like?
I'm there.
I think it's very productive, great meeting, very productive. But I think really beyond this point, I think let's pick up another time.
Okay, very good. Let me just say, I know, and I'll speak for the entire staff, we really, really appreciate your time and investment in this conversation today. This really, really helps us out to, as we move forward in the budget development process and get a document that we're all proud of and try to, really plan for the future for the town, not just short-term, but immediate needs. I know we're looking at, the priorities for the upcoming year. But, some of these other things will probably fall to, year 2 through 5 and so on, that, a lot of these will be in future years out, hopefully as well. So, we will incorporate all this, start, stop, continue stuff, as well as the complete priority list, in the minutes. So that we'll have that, for the next budget retreat as well. And then just lastly, I've got a tentative list for the budget retreat, potential items. I'm not gonna ask for any more time tonight, but if you have any comment or suggestions for the next budget retreat, in addition to continuing this and starting to get more into some of the meat as much as we can, just reach out, send me an email, let me know.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned.
Mayor, can you get a motion to adjourn?
Do we need a motion in a budget retreat?
It's a typical meeting, so I would say so. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
No problem. Does anybody have any problem with adjourning? Do I have a motion?
So
I
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
They added a bunch of stuff for tonight because they had to make up the snow day. They missed theirs, and she got out at like,
Twofold.
they started at 6 or so. I think there was like an hour tonight, and then they had other stuff. So it just depends. Sometimes they go late, sometimes they don't.
They started at 6. Are they still there?
No, they got out at like 7. Really depends on how many rezonings we got.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was
It
still
doesn't usually get long.
involved as much. He's still around. Okay, thank you, that would help, because I meant to tell him, harass him the other night, and it was so darn late, I completely forgot.
How you doing, lady?
Good. How about you, Grandpa?
You learned anything last week?
That was actually an amazing show. They covered everything from budgeting to Parliament hearing
I've
to
been through it.
yeah. So you are
6 of us had to go, we had to go do it. at one time,
Oh, okay,
when
okay.
we got on.
It was about 100
There's a lot of
and,
people on this board that never took it,
oh,
and I think it ought to be this.
mandatory. Well, that's something you can recommend then.
And,
You can make the
There's a
suggestion.
lot of things going on, I'm fixing to recommend.
Oh, okay,
But I want to talk one-on-one.
okay.
I want to tell you something that my dad told me a long time
Oh, okay.
ago. When you vote, vote from here.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that,
Stan and, I appreciate
the
y'all.
last time we met,
Long,
every
long
time
night.
you looked at Teresa and she looked at you, go back and look at it on the thing. Y'all looking at each other and then vote the same way.
No, you know what I told her after that? I said, you mentioned a lot of stuff that I was going to say. That's why I looked at her. Yeah, it wasn't like for approval or anything. I ran because I wanted to run. And I have my own passions and plans. It may have looked that way, and I'm glad you mentioned it to me.
That's
And
what
if
the
any-
people see.
Right, but I haven't received any emails or feedback on that. So if you hear somebody say that, you can let them know I have my own mind.
That's why I'm telling you.
Yeah, yeah, I have my, and I do my own research.
But just, and that's the reason, I hope you understand now, that when I told Sonia that day,